Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. It is a bye week. OU is sitting at 9-0. We are back to talk about football. And of course, we got to talk about the monkey situation in Austin. But first, Jameson, OU had what I feel like was the most complete performance by far this season against Texas Tech. You saw a great game from Caleb Williams with 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. We even got a Spencer Rattler appearance. A lot happened. I felt like in that game. What what really stood out to you about OU's performance on Saturday?
Yeah, okay. Let's just hit on the Spencer Rattler thing because obviously this is just too funny, and then talk about the biggest thing we want to talk about, Caleb Williams. But whenever Spencer came in at the end of the game, all of the crazy hoot and hollering students who chanted Spencer off the field, they were already gone. At Yo Pablo on Campus Corner, and when Spencer came in, standing ovation and got a lot of applause, and then came out perfect through a absolute dime ball to Brian Darby. So little things like that, honestly, can that salvage his draft stock? I understand it's just one drive, but can that salvage his draft stock enough to get him to a number one? A first round pick in this draft.
A number one pick.
Oops, whoops.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't say. I don't think a throw like just one throw can salvage that this year, but I don't know. I think it can start the path for him to build something next year and get to that position. But it was certainly a touching moment. I was excited for him. I was happy for him, but I don't know. It was, I think NFL it's not the right move for him this year.
So I think it's twofold. I think there's two things to this whole Rattler's future discussion, and I think that's you have the on the field stuff, and then the off the field stuff that is obviously inherently tied to what happens on the field. And off the field stuff, I'm not talking about in any sort of issues or whatever, but that's like handling these situations that he's in, right? How he reacts to this, because this is a really weird situation in college. Maybe not the booing. I don't follow the NFL that much, but having a fan base turn on a quarterback like this is not that uncommon, in some cases in the NFL. So I think that it's sticking with it. Lincoln Riley talked a big game about it, but you can never really trust the kind of things that he says to the press. He was, raised a little bit by Bob Stoops and follows some of those little more coaches that maybe deceive the press a little bit. But Riley did talk about how people were going to be seeing, what you look like. Are you going to give up on the team? Are you going to be a good sport about this? Are you going to stay humble about it or whatever? And who knows? But I think sticking through this season, regardless of where it goes for him, I think will help. I don't think he's going to fix any of the on the field performance stuff at OU because he's just not going to get the reps to show that at OU. But I think he can definitely make an impact in the sort of showing the type of person he is.
For sure, and good for him for sure. But I will say let's pivot on to the game because honestly, this was a complete victory if you ask me. 52-21. And it was not even that close. I don't think that the score did not indicate just how in control of this game Oklahoma was. Defensively sound. Granted, it's against a team that just fired their coach. Henry Colombi was a mess, got pulled. But offensively, everything was really humming. And that is all credited to the other quarterback, Caleb Williams. Jameson. What do you make of this? He's joined the 6 TD club with Baker and Kyler. Incredible performance.
Yeah, no, it just shows how naturally talented he is because the way he played this game, yes, there's a couple of reads that we wish would have been a little bit better that you saw throughout the game. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going through their head right now where it's like, oh, he's there. Throw that easy ball. And he doesn't trust his full instincts yet. And that's because he just doesn't have a lot of experience behind him. Once you get back in the pocket after being your starter for a couple more games, then, he won't second guess in his mind for a half second before throwing the ball. What makes him so special and what's making him put up these kind of numbers is his way to create. Like, it feels like that once the play is completely dead, he extends the play and makes a play out of nothing. With Spencer Rattler, whenever the play was dead, he'd roll out right into the defensive end and have to throw it away or throw a bad ball.
As our friend Brian, or as our pal Brian Davis would say, making chicken salad out of chicken something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ty, your thoughts on Williams' big day?
Yeah, I thought it was good. Again, he's a true freshman and he's learning. So I think we naturally have, as a fan base, it seems like pretty realistic expectations for him. I don't think anyone has really bought into the whole Heisman hype, which is a whole nother discussion. But it was an excellent performance for sure, especially considering. But also, it was Texas Tech, and our run game was not amazing. So there is that to consider, causing us to pass a little bit more. But yeah, a great performance, and again, liking what I'm seeing, and hopefully, like I talked about in the Kansas post game, making some mistakes but learning from them. We want him to make those mistakes against Kansas, make the mistakes against Texas Tech. We don't want to be making the mistakes against Texas or against someone in the conference championship or whatever else. So
yeah, the run game was really very mediocre. I will agree with you there. But really the offense, other than, the run game looking a little low, only one punt in this game. And that was the first drive. So that's pretty great. So after that, everyone got it rolling. And then, of course, one drive ended in a just awesome field goal from Gabe Burkich. So let's take a look at kind of some of the other reasons why Caleb Williams had a big game, and that is his receiving core. Goodness gracious, Marvin Mims and Mario Williams both went off, I would say. 100-yard games from the both of them, 4 receptions for Mims, 5 for Williams. And then 2 touchdowns for Mimsy and 1 for Super Mario. So, Jameson, which of the 2 receivers impressed you the most?
It had to be Mario Williams for me, even though with Marvin Mims putting up a big stat line and, getting the big, 6-7-yard touchdown and whatnot. Mario Williams was a guy that was injured, and he's a true freshman, and Lincoln Riley applauded him in his press conference this week, saying this was a guy that we weren't even sure if he was going to be able to play this week. And he comes in as a true freshman coming off an injury and puts out really good performance. That's the guy that we were talking about at the beginning of the season, where it's like, I really like the way he plays, and he can be a possession wide receiver in this passing attack. And with being without him the past couple weeks, kind of hurt us a little bit. We talked about having Drake Stoops, out there, and he's been a great, reliable guy, especially with his hands. But whenever he's out there, that obviously we're missing something up front. I love Mario Williams' game, and I think he's an absolute weapon to have next to the deep threat of Marvin Mims and the possession wide receiver, Jaden Hazelwood.
Absolutely. Ty, your take on Mims versus Williams?
Yeah, I'm just going to keep reusing not old takes for Williams specifically, but it's a great spot in college football to be WR2 and be good. I'm getting to where I say it every week, but with Hazelwood established as a firm, sort of WR1, if we're going to use the numbers, but then Mims being a massive threat just anytime he's on the field, especially with Williams having a little bit better chemistry with him than our previous quarterback, it certainly seems like. So that definitely is going to create opportunities for another super skilled guy, maybe even a WR3. I don't want to put labels on guys, but, the more the merrier for sure, because the essence of my WR2 take is that there's not a whole lot of secondary depth on most college teams. So you might get one or two good secondary players that are going to be stacked on the main dudes, and that opens up opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we've had this conversation in the past pods, but I want to bring it up again. And do we really think, Ty kind of hints at it a little bit, do we really have a hierarchy of wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2? Because Marvin Mims, the way he played this game, you think that he's our number 1 guy. But I think there's more so in this passing attack and these wide receivers. They kind of have little niches in each place. They're, when it comes down to the deep ball and getting past someone, that is where Marvin Mims is wide receiver one. There's no doubt about it. Jaden Hazelwood does not have the separation to be that kind of guy. But in the red zone, my goodness, it's not even close that Jaden Hazelwood's our wide receiver one. There's no doubt in my mind. You throw back shoulders to him, and he's going to go up and get it. And then if you're just trying to play possession, 3rd down and 5, I think everyone's out there. I don't really believe that there is a guy that's like, I'm looking at him first in almost all of my playbook as my wide receiver one. I think it's more situational here.
I kind of agree with that because we've seen, as the season progresses, guys kind of slot in, slot out of that. Mims was a non-factor in the early part of this season. Mm-hmm, now he's, incredible. So I really think it's kind of a by committee, more so than it has been in previous years, where you don't have this is CeeDee Lamb, this is Hollywood, that type of guy. But I don't know. We still have 4 games to determine that for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think me. One sec, Ty. You hit this right off. But is it just me? But Marvin Mims wouldn't have like a stellar game this year if he wouldn't have had a long catch, right? So I get what you're saying, Jaden Hazelwood being our wide receiver one, because Marvin Mims is really completely dependent on the deep ball, and that's a thing that Spencer really didn't get a lot of.
Yeah, and that's actually a good tie-in. What I was going to say, Jameson, is I not to gloss over Bobby's take there, but I agree but disagree with your take on it, Jameson. I agree that everyone on our team, we have a lot of very situational receivers or tools with the receiving core, especially when you start to factor in a lot of the fullback plays that we do, and then a lot of the tight end plays as well. But I think my take is also sort of tempered on just the frequency of the plays. And I think that's what makes Hazelwood the WR1, is because the type of plays where he is the main guy are the type of pass plays that we're throwing. Most of the time we're throwing a pass play, or it's going to be the main look in the progression. Mims is, I think, like you said, the big deep threat dude for sure, but we're just not throwing that many of those per game, or those they're not in the game plan as frequently. So I think that's sort of what makes it, but ultimately, the opposing team has a big vote there as well when it comes to where they're going to stack their defenders.
You have your go-to guy, and you have your guy for the long balls.
Well, I think, and I think going back a couple years, the sort of Hollywood and CeeDee Lamb, or even Rambo, I think 2 seasons ago with the first half of the season, and then CeeDee Lamb really shows that. Rambo was a really big threat at the start of the season because people were just stacked on CeeDee. And then as the defenses started to shift, that's when we saw Rambo start to become less of a, big game dude when he started to get covered more so.
Yeah, definitely. Well, anything else from the offense? I feel like we're kind of go for it.
We have to talk about the running back in the running game, because that's one thing just watching throughout the game. And I know I've harped on this a lot throughout the season, that I am a guy that I love establishing the run to open up the pass. Now, this game is kind of, a difference with that. So therefore, we were trying to run the ball. I don't think Texas Tech was really stacking the box that much. We just really weren't getting open, good gaps to run through. It's not like they were daring Caleb Williams to play. They were a little bit, but not like overtly, like this is very obvious that they were daring the true freshman to beat us. And obviously the way Caleb Williams is playing, that's not a good way to play us anymore. But aside from that, is even if the run game is not working, if your pass game is working from the beginning and it's not getting stopped and you're going to keep on succeeding over and over and over, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I don't care so much that our run game was a little bit weak, because we finally figured out that we don't have to run the ball if whatever we're doing in the pass game is continuing to work.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I agree with you, because if you could just shred Tech, get the points, to me it doesn't matter. If we only have Kennedy Brooks only had 35 yards, Marcus Major had 39. Great to see him out there, by the way. Just
29 for Major.
Yeah, 29 for Major. Eric Gray only had 5 yards.
It's all
Eric,
coming
That's an
together.
embarrassment.
Marcus Major. Hey, there you go. Ty's plan. He's gonna score us the national championship winning run, and Ty is like, yes, my Marcus Major future is hit.
Oh man, let's
I'm
not
gonna-
talk about
yeah, I'm
national
gonna pull up
champions
his-
with OU, Bobby.
I'm gonna
You
pull
gotta-
up his schedule and I'm just
breaks.
gonna start following him to class and feeding him answers. Which, how did he go on academic probation? The rest of our receivers, or the rest of our running backs, allegedly, hypothetically, unconfirmed reports, are cheating in all their classes. Why is Marcus Major getting left out of this rampant cheating ring in the running back room?
Because you have to try to cheat, because there's some people that don't even want to go to the step of having to cheat. I'm sure there's people that don't even show up for tests in the first place. And I don't know what's going on in his life or what he went through in high school to get to that point. But, if you're getting to the point where you're completely weren't even enrolled or whatever, and you're on academic probation where it's that bad, this dude had to just not be showing up a lick to anything.
Yeah, it had to have been a attendance thing for sure. For sure. Ty, your take on the running game?
Yeah, so I agree with ultimately it's about points on the board. The offense could go out and score 0 points as long as we return more kicks or have more defensive time. If we have more points than the other guy, no matter how it occurs, that's ultimately all that matters. Which I think ties in. It's a bit extreme, but it ties into the sort of we don't have to run if the passing game is working, which is great. But it's Texas Tech, whose best win is against Cincy. I'm sorry, Houston. I can't tell the difference. So,
Oh, God.
they're both just commuter schools in red that receive a lot of hype for no reason. So,
Man. Big 12 schools.
yeah. So I think
Big 12 schools.
ultimately, it didn't matter here, but with our running game having been in sort of question all season, and then we get these glimmers of hope, oh, okay, we got it, and then it goes away. It's sort of fading in and out there. It is possibly we could have had a great running game. We just didn't lean into it, but it is a bit concerning to me going forward.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, that's all we got for the offense. Moving on to the defense. A pretty solid performance, if you ask me. Holding Tech to 21. Last touchdown was kind of in the garbage time territory. 6 minutes left. We were up 52-14. What did you see in this performance, Jameson?
My biggest thing was getting them off the field on third down, because that was a huge deal for us in the past. And we've always talked about it. I feel like I've been kind of cheated out of some games that where you watch it and the first couple drives from our opponents go really long. You're like, well, I've been looking forward to this week, and I made a podcast about this this whole game, and I hype up my whole Saturday, and I watch, and the first quarter's already gone just because Jason Bean ran down the field and gave us one drive. We got Texas Tech off the field and quick in those first two drives, and that was a huge deal for me. And maybe that's because we're finally getting some of our guys back. Jalen Redmond coming back. I understand he only played let me see the numbers on 22 out of the 69 snaps, but still that's a huge piece to put into that defensive line. And then Aaron Turner, we can always talk about that with Ty, him coming back, putting in 67 snaps right off. Game ball worthy.
Game ball.
Keep on listening. Keep on listening, but I might give you a spoiler.
That is his ninth straight game ball.
Let's cut the political stuff, guys. Let's try to keep this apolitical.
Yeah, for real. But seriously, I mean, there's so much to talk about. But I really want to talk first when we're hitting the defense is about the defensive backs, because that's a lot of the time where on third down we're struggling to stop them. We saw a lot of this Mike Stoops-esque, we're giving them so much zone coverage and the slants destroying us. But the move of Key Lawrence to cornerback, how impressed were y'all with him? Because I was pretty damn impressed.
I was skeptical, that the way they've been moving Bowman around kind of made me nervous, that the Key Lawrence move would be not great. But Key Lawrence, that guy is quickly developing into one of the best players on this defense. Hands down. He was great.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah. The thing is with him is comparing him to Billy. Billy's a true freshman. And I understand Key Lawrence is his first year being a transfer from Tennessee, but Key Lawrence has experience of playing the cornerback position in college football. Also, SEC football. So that's great competition.
It just means more.
Billy Bowman was an athlete coming out of high school that primarily made all of his highlights, in the wide receiver game and then the return game and played defensive back. But everyone knows high school defensive backs don't do too much. Really, where you make your name in your practice of being a defensive back coming out of high school is the camps and the 7-on-7s and the Nike opening and all that stuff. But Billy Bowman was just doing everything through high school. So coming in, putting him at nickel, having him go through all of camp, and spring football and all that whatnot, practicing that, and then moving him out to corner was a recipe for disaster. And that's the reason we barely. And it's kind of sad because now he's only got 5 snaps in this game. That's honestly embarrassing to compare. We should have never moved him out to corner, no matter how desperate we were. And now Justin Broyle seems to be taking the number 1 at the nickelback position when Billy Bowman was showing us a lot of good stuff at the beginning of the season in terms of being aggressive at that nickelback position.
Yeah, for sure. That's a bummer, but hopefully he'll get more snaps and get that confidence back up for sure.
Mm-hmm. Bobby, but I'll ask both of y'all this, and I feel like a lot of OU fans have a sour taste in their mouth still about Justin Broyles and how he's been burned so much in the past. He's a high recruit Oklahoma City guy coming out, and he's kind of been underwhelming, and he's just too short, and we have bad memories of us in the playoffs with him and how he's underperformed. But to be completely honest with y'all, he's not one of our problems right now when it comes down to our defense. He's pretty middle ground, does well, and comes out with effort. And that's not a lot. A lot of players on our defense aren't coming out with the same effort that Justin Broyles has. I just want to put my comment out there that I'm not a hater where it's like, oh, we're playing Justin Broyles way too much out in the secondary, and that's why we're getting rushed. He's not the problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, if you hear the name, you know him from, kind of the old guard, and you get a little worried because he is a smaller guy, but I think he's doing a pretty solid job, all things considered. I mean, especially in that game, I don't think there was a lot to really worry about because it's not like we were getting burnt a lot, and really the only one on Tech's offense that could have done anything, that could do anything the entire day was Azukama, who had just a wild game, 123 for 1 touchdown, which doesn't sound that wild, but still compared to what Tech had, pretty good. I don't know. Ty, what do you think is who do you think is the problem?
So what do I think is the problem?
Or no, you go with your
so to Jameson's Broyles question, or sort of dialogue opener. I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's college football. We can't, as of now, hopefully this might change soon. This would be a cool rule change. We can't involuntary transfer people, right? There's no trades. So you have who you have. So at the end of the day, it's not like we can go get someone else. So if everyone is sort of underperforming or no one's really that great, then absolutely 100% of the time, even if there is someone that's super great, and just with a bad attitude, give me the guy that cares and is going to go out there and, cares about the team, cares about the game. So what if he gets burned here and there? All of our dudes are getting burned on the defensive side of the ball regularly. So I think that attitude plays a lot because that can help the other people around you, for sure. As to what I think the problem is, it sort of speaks to the condition of the entire team that we're able to, sort of make these changes or throw these guys in because of attitude when we don't really have a whole. And I'm not saying that's, who knows what is going on in Alex Grinch's brain. It's getting close to Christmas, so he's getting grumpier as we speak. But I don't know.
Lazy joke. I expected that from Bobby.
Here's the thing. I think I'm the first one to have made it this year. So,
well,
it's like being the first one to hang up Christmas lights. You win.
I'm just saying, is Alex Grinch spending too much time on his Christmas thieving schemes than his defensive schemes? Thank you, Al. I'll first time caller. Whatever, Johnny's.
I'll take this.
I'll take this call off the air.
I can't wait. I cannot wait for OU fans on Paul Feinbaum. as SEC fans. It's just the perfect. I wish Blake were here to listen to this. We're just the convergence of Gooners and then SEC fans of the conference, like reaching the singularity where Gooners are SEC fans as well.
Just throwing them into that madness like gumbo. It's going to be a disaster. I can't wait. Because the Gooners of the SEC, it's not like OU has. We have irrational fans, yeah. But the SEC, I feel like, has even more irrational fans.
Here's the thing: is the SEC and the SEC fan bases are like nice, like spicy, like gumbo chili, and college football is the G5 chili cook-off, and OU and OU's fans are Fireball whiskey. And we're just about to throw all that stuff together, and like 3 of our listeners might get this, but hopefully it results in another championship, like the Fireball.
The Fireball chili did win a championship.
Fireball chili.
If you know, you know. Anyways. What else do we have to talk
I'm just cringing at that, but seriously, I think we have
bars in that too. Fun fact:
just throwing whatever into a chili.
Yeah.
But there's plenty to talk about on this defense, Bobby, and I've got some things I want to talk about because I was kind of hinting at it with Justin Broyles that I think this is a big thing. Effort really is a huge deal when it comes down to how well a defense does. I understand there's myths where people it's like, oh, defense just comes down to effort, but no, that's not. It takes a lot of skill too. But whenever you have the skill, and we've known that is there, but you're not giving out the effort and you know that you can, there's a huge problem. So that's why I applaud minutes, and snaps to Justin Broyles. The problem is guys like Perrion Winfrey, this whole year where he started off the year, looked like a force. People were talking about, could this guy be a first, day 1 or day 2 NFL draft pick? And now Can you tell me the last time you heard his name get called out or say, wow, look at Perrion get into the backfield, or wow, good sack, good tackle from Perrion? We have yet to see it in the past, 3 or 4 games, and it's honestly an embarrassment because our D-line was supposed to be absolutely solid.
Yeah.
Going back to the start of the season, that was sort of one of the things in our preseason things, and then early season things that we talked about, having that D-line that could be a reliable, sort of thing that would enable us to sort of, account for our underperforming parts of the defense. So not having a D-line that is, well, I don't want to say a D-line that's not good or bad, but having a D-line that struggles to do things like put pressure on the quarterback is not a tremendous issue against like Henry Colombi, but that's the type of thing, that as an OU fan is frustrating because we can go 9-0 in conference play and then our 2 not very good out of conference opponents, but that's the difference, right? Between us being a Bama, I don't want to say Clemson anymore, but a Clemson historically, or even I don't want to say we're not on Ohio State's level, but being a team that's a serious championship contender, serious playoff threat, that's really been the difference is just those complete things, specifically with the defense. So it's rough, especially this year for the whole defense, not to wrap up the defensive discussion, but this was supposed to be the year, that we had things together on the defense. That was going to be the thing that got us over that hump. So frustrating across the board.
Yeah, it's not been an immaculate. They didn't have an immaculate performance against Texas Tech, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't game breaking, but it once again we haven't seen them just go all out, and it's frustrating. And you start to wonder if we actually will ever see it this season, because down the way we aren't getting another easy game at all this season whatsoever. Because let's just be honest, we have championship November, then you got the Big 12 championship, and then if everything goes right, you have the college football playoff, and that's pretty stressful.
Yeah, and the D-line, the big boys win you big time games. We always talk about defensive line, offensive line are probably the most important positions in college football by far. And we coming into this season thinking that defensive line was going to be one of our biggest strengths, if not our biggest strength. It's just really disappointing. I'll say this, though. Isaiah Thomas showed up versus Texas Tech, played very well. Obviously, he was tipping balls left and right, was making good pressures on the quarterback. Honestly, game ball consideration, I'm thinking very highly of Isaiah Thomas. And when it comes down to the defensive side. When we're actually talking about the defensive line, is like, thank God we have effort guys and young guys that are kind of showing out for guys that haven't really put out too much. Ethan Downs has been an absolutely stellar surprise for us this season, and you can tell he's been slowly getting more and more snaps as the season progresses because that's the effort that he gives. He's another workaholic kind of guy that the coaching staff really likes, kind of similar to Danny Stutzman wouldn't have gotten hurt, probably kind of the same hierarchy of how he's getting progressing up the ladder.
Yeah. I mean, you're totally right. Stutz. Yeah, I'm with you. If y'all didn't know, by the way, this is my flu game. I'm coming off of a brutal ear infection out here, just wobbling out here. Haven't watched any film. I've just been dead in bed all week. So your boy's having a rough go of it. Just wanted to let the listeners at home know.
Yeah, let me take over, Bobby, and let's talk about the linebackers last before we kind of move on. Just put a ribbon on this game. Because he seems like you need a sub. But let me talk about the linebackers because it's kind of interesting because overall they didn't play perfectly, but I saw some flashes from Asamoah in this game where you kind of get that from him. It's give and take. Some games it's like, what is he doing? He's kind of just running around with his head cut off, But then whenever you get put in the right spots and he makes the right gap plays, Asamoah looked really good. Stutzman, another guy that looked good as well. Shane Witter actually looked really good as well. The linebackers are starting to put it together. I think they're going to continue to be our weakest group on this defense. But if they can play games like they did versus Texas Tech and the defensive line can turn it on to what they have the potential to be, and we can get our secondary healthy, our defense should kind of round into form here in Championship November. Ty, did you see anything from the linebackers that you liked?
Not during the game. This is an interesting sort of tie-in. Might not be that interesting to you guys. I think it's interesting. So I recently discovered through my YouTube perusing, my YouTube recommendations, that our kicker, Michael Turk, has a super awesome YouTube page. I don't know if either of you guys are familiar.
Of course.
You are? Bobby? Okay.
Yes,
James,
I've never looked up Turk's YouTube.
I got it recommended. I wasn't looking it up either, but he streams, well, not streams, but has videos just all the time of sort of everything. And it was interesting to see.
He's a vlogger. He's like a vlogger.
Yeah, like a vlogger, but for the team, like in the locker room, like on game days, on the bus, all that stuff. It is pretty interesting. He's not super cringy because he's just like insane. Like Burkitt, he's like roommates with Burkitt too, which is hilarious. And they both just like don't wash their hair. I'm one to speak, but and just do crazy things all the time. But it was interesting to see. I watched a couple episodes, and it certainly seemed to me like our linebackers, while not necessarily being the strongest position on the field, seemed to pretty firmly be team leaders in the locker room on both sides of the ball to some extent. Caleb Kelly, especially, not being a super strong performer. I mean, he's a Bob Stoops recruit. Like dude's been on the team for forever. But even some of the other guys, like Stutzman and some of the younger guys as well, certainly seem like, from the few episodes I've watched, of just how the team functions behind the scenes, which is really interesting, and how they interact at meals and workouts and everything else. It certainly seems like the linebackers maybe have a pretty strong impact on the things that we don't see when it's just on the field. So sort of unique.
Yeah, that definitely would make sense. And you can kind of see it on social media, especially with Danny Stutzman. He gets thrown around. There's a whole like cult following essentially of Danny Stutzman where they all took over his profile picture and just respond to his comments. Like he's a little cult following. Kind of interesting, but you can tell that they actually really like each other. And whenever you have a group like that, even though there's only two people there, they got to be in synchronous, working together. That's always really good to hear. But like I said, definitely not our strongest group. Going into this bye week, obviously the biggest story about this defense is getting healthy. Jalen Redmond was not 100%. That's why he didn't play the full snap count. But he's never going to be a guy who's going to play 60-plus snaps. But he will get there. Woody Washington is a huge story. He should be able to come back from what he had for this Baylor game. That's kind of the projected timeline that insiders were talking about with that. It was more of a 6 to 8 week injury recovery timeline. So he's right hitting into that sweet spot. We'll see if he comes back and plays well with that. And it'll be interesting if he slots in and plays well because DJ Graham in this game did not show anything versus Ezekama that he should have that job on lock. Woody Washington should come in and honestly take that starting job from him and keep Key Lawrence at the cornerback position with Delaren Turner-Yell coming back at that safety and Patrick Fields at free safety. Do y'all agree with that? Do you think Key Lawrence and Woody Washington would be the starters for you coming into Baylor if everyone's healthy?
I don't know about starting Woody straight off the bat. Because I don't know. It depends. If the game was this weekend, would Woody Washington be healthy? That's the question to me. Like, if the answer is yes, then play him for sure. If not, then I'd be a little. I don't really want to push that even further. Yeah. And then there's the whole issue of the fact that he hasn't played, in at this point a month and a half. So that's obviously an issue as well. You don't want to just immediately throw him into the fire in a road environment that is going to be, I don't know what you would call the Baylor road environment, kind of popping. I don't know. It's just everyone
kind of popping.
Everyone, Christian sleepover where everyone's hopped up on Dr. Pepper and Mountain Dew. That's probably the best way I could describe it. I don't know.
That's pretty fun.
It depends. I wouldn't want to throw him into that fire that early with that stakes, but I would definitely put him in the rotation for sure. You got to start Key Lawrence though, without a doubt. Especially at corner, 100%.
He earned it, and he knows that he has a spot on this defense. He's one of our best 11 guys. There's no doubt about it, and they've got to find a place to put him. And we've seen in the past that Alex Grinch is going to play Fields and Delaren Turner when they're healthy, and there's no argument around it. Those are the guys, no matter what, no matter how bad they play, even though Delaren Turner plays great. But I think that I'm not trying to toot my own horn or flex or anything here, but I do know what Woody Washington's injury is. I was told by somebody, and I was told that I cannot say what it is on the podcast. It is not like from a message board or anything, but essentially he took his time with this injury, and it's something that people recover from and return to play pretty decently. I think that he will slot in and be the starter on Saturday and 2 Saturdays from now versus Baylor. But like you said, there is a big discussion about it. But DJ Graham's performance on Saturday did not earn him a solidified spot. Key Lawrence did. So Woody Washington's pass, it's just hard for me to think that he's not going to be the starter.
Let me ask you this, Jameson. Right now, where we sit right now, how many players on OU's defense you think are better than Key Lawrence?
I think that you go better, playing better or just better?
Just like quality of
just
play
better
right
people.
Well, I mean,
in terms of morals,
are they performing better? Because you would think, for example, Perion Winfrey should be a better player than Key, but Perion Winfrey
I'm just saying
like the team right now.
Like current form. Current form.
Yeah, I got what you're saying. So, I think obviously if you're talking defense, you cannot talk defense at all without bringing up Nick Benito. He's our best player on the defense. Yep. He's number one. Isaiah Thomas probably number two.
Yep.
Playing a lot better than Key Lawrence. Delaren Turner, hard to tell because he just came back, but
he has 9 game balls.
Yes, and I feel more confident in Delaren Turner in his play than Key Lawrence. But I understand there's a conversation with him coming back from hamstring. But whenever he played that many snaps last game, he played really well. I think that but then after that, I think I've got to give it to Key. I think he's probably, out of those, he's probably the 4th most confident I am in players currently. Am I missing anybody really? Because, you would put Perion Winfrey above him, but he's just not playing well. Jalen Redmond, you would normally do it, but he's still trying to recover from the injury. The linebackers, like I said, are kind of iffy. And then DJ Graham, definitely not. Jane Davis, definitely not. Definitely not Patrick Fields or Justin Burrows either. So I think right where I have him right there at number 4 is pretty solid.
Which is so crazy to me because like a couple weeks ago, he was getting like not a ton of snaps. Like we would not be talking about him much at all. So the way like one guy could just slide up the kind of power rankings in a couple weeks, very impressive, I would say.
That Kansas game was huge for his confidence, I'm sure, because he played like a beast. And I think, I don't remember what game it was, but a lot of people were giving him really bad rap for he was the high man on the safety. He came over and dropped an interception on a go route. It was a couple games ago. I don't remember what it was for, but everyone was like, he should have caught that. I'm tired of our defensive backs dropping interceptions.
Was it K-State?
Yeah, I think it was K-State. Yeah, and they're saying like, here we go again. People are dropping, but the ability to see that play and get there and get into that position is what we need from this defense. So if you can play safety and cornerback and succeed at both of them, I understand we only have a sample size of 1 here. We've seen plenty of cornerbacks in our system do well at the beginning and fall off to the end. Honestly, I feel very confident in the way he's played at the safety position, but I still have to see at the cornerback, but he's very talented and he needs to be one of our top 11 guys.
I agree. All right, Ty, any final thoughts on OU's defense, this Tech game in general, before we wrap it up? Because we have a lot of discussion. We got to talk about the college football playoff rankings, and of course, we got to talk about our dearest Gia the monkey down in Austin. But before we do that, let's just kind of wrap this up.
Yeah, I think my sort of last thoughts, going back to probably 5 minutes ago when the question was first posed, I would start. No worries. I would definitely start Woody. I think Woody is a pretty clear start because as you know, before Jamison sort of showed his hand, the whole thing was just sort of set up for Jamison to show everyone how smart he is and how much access he has. But
I'm not. I wasn't flexing.
It was like
I ain't got much to flex.
When that one student asked the teacher a question that they already kind of know the answer to, but they're just asking a question to show how smart they are.
I hate those people.
No, but what I was going to say was I think Woody is a pretty clear start. Key Lawrence obviously, but Woody's a pretty clear start. And then as Jamison posed the question was, if he is healthy. So it's that the question as posed is not necessarily, is he going to be healthy enough? It's assuming he is. I think assuming he is, the lost sort of play time, I think, is sort of insignificant in the amount of consistency that he's shown so far. Because remember, this was a guy, past season as a freshman was able to really come in and show some impressive stuff when he came in, and then was pretty, not amazing, but pretty consistent in really his first full season before injury. So
yeah, definitely. Well, Jamison, before we get started on some of this madness, do you want to take a trip onto the Cruden Corner?
Yeah, it's been too long. Let's hop on.
Let's do it.
David.
Yes?
What is this, David?
This is a
Cruden Corner with Jamison.
Everybody dancing.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I just feel like we have to come in and talk about our recent new commit because people might see the name, you might have saw the headlines of who it is, but I just want y'all to know that our most recent commit to the 2022 class, obviously that we have lost a lot of wide receivers with Luther Burden decommitting and Jordan Hudson decommitting, and obviously Taylor Shetron. We needed wide receivers, and kind of out of this past couple weeks, last second, we've got one now into the boat, and that is Rodney. I just blanked on his name. What the heck? Rodney Anderson's little brother, and Nick Anderson came in, and he's a 6'4" wide receiver, 4-star commit out of Katy, Texas. And we needed guys, and he was an Oregon commit before that, and kind of hopped in the boat with us, which is, it's really cool whenever you see legacies come in, and it shows you that whenever you have a little brother go to the same team as the big brother, there's probably a pretty good culture around and good memories from that big brother because he had other offers to go to. He had other great offers to go play at. But obviously there's something good going on here, and they're not negative recruiting their own team, probably like Texas players are currently doing right now.
Did not know that was going on.
It's been going on for a while. I mean, it went on, obviously with Herman. But right now, I mean, I bet you it's not as bad right now. I haven't heard of it recently. It definitely went on with Herman. But right now, I'm sure those Texas players are not happy at all. And there's obviously some coaching dysfunction there, and some other coaching stuff that goes along with that. But we'll get into that in a little bit. But I think that was really cool, just seeing a little brother come into the boat of this, because it's a great commit for us at a very needed position in that class. 2023 is going to be stacked at wide receiver with 3 possible 5-stars coming into that class. But right now, we lost already 3 big-time wide receiver commits, and it's big getting one with the boat, where Raleek Brown is already kind of a hybrid at that, but we wanted another big wide receiver, and we got one in a 6'4" guy, and Rodney Anderson's little brother.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. I love it. Love seeing that connection. If he's anything like his brother, it'll be pretty damn good. So, yeah. Is that all you got for Cruton Corner?
Yeah, I'll keep it all updated. It's, right in the season, it kind of gets a little bit into a dead period because everyone's just taking their visits across. Big names to keep a look at moving forward. Marvin Jones Jr., the edge commit, is probably the one that we're really looking at the most, next to Chris McClellan of Owasso, both defensive line guys, Chris McClellan being more interior while Marvin Jones is an edge guy. Marvin Jones is taking his visits to Alabama and Florida coming up, and those are our competition there. Chris McClellan, also, we got competition between us and Florida. Those should come down probably to the end. I guess a couple things. And then Javante Barnes is taking his official at the Iowa State game. He's a running back from Las Vegas. That is big with DeMarco Murray and pretty much a huge OU lean. He'll be committing in January. We're a big-time favorite there. So the 2022 class looking pretty good right now.
I am very not worried about any sort of deal we have with Florida, because Dan Mullen seems like a total joke in terms of recruiting. With some of the comments he's made,
Honestly,
it was just like, I'm going to recruit when the football season's over, and we'll talk about it then. There's a reason why he's getting boat raced by Florida. It's because his talent is behind. How do you have that? How do you have that mentality in 2021 with college football? I mean, how would you have that in the 70s? Barry Switzer would have just completely eaten him up.
Yeah, and you would like to think that OU is some kind of white knight, that we don't negative recruit and we don't use things against people. Of course we do. And I guarantee you, with Marvin and Chris, we're going to say, like, hey, look at this guy. He's obviously frustrated. He's not handling it well. And you can tell that a guy comes into a press conference like Mullen, and he's a little bit short-tempered, that there's probably some chirping, and I know that the fans are chirping a little bit, like, is he, on the hot seat a little bit, which is kind of sad because he is a very talented coach, and if you get rid of him, where are you going with after that? There's not a lot of good options, and you should stick with them. But there's obviously some chitter-chatter that's going on that's getting to his head, and that should be used up against him, especially like he said about the recruiting comments. But other than that, we got Blake now into the stream, and it's a perfect time. We got to talk about. Well, what about Bobby? Do you think we should give him a little 1-minute spot to plug TCU and plug his episode on the state of the Foreign Frogs?
Yes, of course. Welcome on, Blake Crowley. Bowden Blake to the pod.
What happened? What happened?
Oh my God, what happened? Welcome on, Bowden Blake to the pod. Good to have you. We brought you on to the main pod for several reasons. Don't know what Ty's doing. But
I have no idea what just happened with Ty. Please explain what's going on.
Nothing happened. I thought we were moving into the picks. I did this to show people I'm insane.
Oh, of course. I love it.
It's not a cry for help. It's just to show you that you shouldn't gamble against me because I'm insane.
Can you please explain how this happened? So he has what appears to be, I'm trying to figure this out. So on his left eye. So was that your left hand that you painted green and you palmed your face with?
But did you try both hands first and one didn't work out?
No, it was my left. Yeah, no, it was just the left. It's the thing is like you're apparently it would have been easier just to paint it because your hand turns out doesn't actually doesn't actually fit your face, if that makes sense. Faces have a different shape than the hands, so you can't So I would have been better off, just kind of free handing it. Yeah, no pun fully intended, but yeah.
Gotcha.
Just a little, for the viewers to encourage.
Of course. Viewership. Well, I love it, but
also I changed my hat.
This is my number 8 hat. That's great. So because
Not
of that,
to take away from the state of the Frogs, but
so if you're confused,
nobody cares about TCU.
Oh my God. So Blake, we brought you on to talk a little bit about the college football playoff rankings, and we still haven't talked about the monkey in Austin, but I'm sure you have some interesting takes on that. We would like to ask the legality, what's going to happen to the monkey potentially. Is it in danger? Can the monkey get sued? But first, I would ask you. I have to ask you. So, State of the Frogs, obviously a big week for TCU. Gary Patterson, tell us a little bit about what you got going on.
Yeah, so covered a little bit in the State of the Frogs podcast, but look, Gary Patterson leaving before we even had a game to kind of recognize him and everything that he'd done really sucks. Like, that part about it sucks that we kind of gave him, hey, we're gonna make you resign at the end of the season. He said, I want to resign now. It sucks that we don't get that send off, and like as a TCU fan, that really hurts. But for the first time in my lifetime, or not first time in my lifetime, but it feels like a lifetime, for probably the last 4 or 5 years, I'm really excited about where TCU football is going. I think we have the limp fish, who I was calling a limp fish 2 weeks ago, seems to have his head on straight and is actually looking at good candidates that I think is good for where the Big 12 is going. And everything that I kind of outlined in that podcast with being a more offensive-minded coach that knows NIL, that knows the transfer portal, those are their criteria. So I have to give props to TCU in the athletic department for the first time in a while that they're really trying to find a guy that can bring us into this next chapter, that they can build upon the foundation Gary built, and you can respect that, but we can also do better than what we have the past 4 or 5 years. So I'm really excited. Like, I'm really happy, but I just wish Gary could coach this last game so I could just so I could at least give him a farewell in the stadium. But
for sure,
that's my only qualms with it.
And hopefully they do give him that. I know he's working on the transitional team with Jerry Kill and everything, but anyways, if you want to hear more about that, definitely tune into State of the Frogs. You can check that out on our YouTube channel. We have a little section just for Blake. So anyways, we got to get into the monkey situation in Austin. Blake, as a man of the law, first of all, if you hadn't heard this, dear listeners, on Sunday night, Texas special teams, the Texas special teams head coach, his wife, former stripper, known as what was it?
Pole Assassin.
Pole Assassin.
Capital ASS.
Capital ASS. Pole Assassin. She hosted a Halloween party where, unfortunately, her pet monkey Gia bit one of the visitors. It was a child, which is bad. In disclaimer, the child getting hurt is not funny. The stripper and the monkey is funny. So we do this. This tweet came out and we're like, okay, that's weird. And then Pole Assassin started defending it very specifically on Twitter and said, look, it's not my fault the child went in and found the monkey. The monkey was by itself. They weren't supposed to go in there.
I agree.
She's like, I had a sign and everything that said, don't pet the monkey. So, we got
There's more to this. There's more to
this. Yeah, Jameson, tell us more.
I have a quick programmer's note for the viewers. And this is an important fact. Gia is in fact a spider monkey, as in I'm gonna come at you like a spider monkey. The image that we're using is of a capuchin, which is different.
I didn't know.
You're still dangerous. But spider monkeys, like, there's a whole movie line about how I'm gonna come at you like a spider monkey.
Oh my gosh, that is
Also,
true.
if you put a sign at a closed door that says "Don't pet the monkey inside," of course a fucking child unsupervised is gonna go in there to see the monkey. Like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. Just leave the door closed.
Okay, James.
Let's provide more context to this, because I think that this is very key to talk more about the coach and his life and how this came to be, because that's what's really funny here. And Tom mentioned it in the comments on YouTube. I think that so this coordinator, he was being considered for the job. At the same time, Mike Stoops was supposed to be a strong candidate for this position. They decided that Texas decided Mike Stoops was too controversial, so they hired this guy instead. This guy had just left his family of 4, his wife, to go marry this stripper who's called by Pole Assassin. And this monkey is just not her pet monkey. It performs with her on the pole. And there is a video of the monkey on the pole, and they're throwing dollar bills at this monkey. Also, this woman's on Jerry Springer before. This is not your turn of the bill, just like stripper. Okay, she's a stripper. So what? She was on Jerry Springer and uses the monkey as an emotional support animal. It is labeled as an emotional support animal to her. And she has a huge backyard with an enclosure and everything back there to where it looks pretty nice for that monkey to stay. So she posted on like Nextdoor or everything on Halloween night that she say, hey, come over. We have like a haunted house or maze or everything. Kids can come over and whatnot. And they had all of that away from monkey cage and backyard. And I guess the kid kind of wandered off, just like a little kids on Halloween do, like Ty said, little assholes, and went into the enclosure and obviously did not read the sign and got bit by the monkey. So, Blake, who is at fault, the monkey or the little kid?
Yeah, so the limited exposure I have with kind of this animal type law is you actually have to learn this for the bar. And kind of the general rule is that if you own a domesticated animal, you have to take reasonable care in order to ensure that it doesn't attack people or some harm happens. But if you have non-domesticated animals, you're basically liable for whatever they do. So if you have a tiger, a lion, a bear, even if it's on your property and somebody walks into the enclosure and it mauls you, that's on you because you have a weird animal that is not domesticated. So in this sense, even if you have this, I haven't looked much in, maybe Texas has some weird rules or something, but from my limited knowledge, just because you put up signs that are like, don't go into the monkey enclosure, it's not a domesticated animal. And you can't say a well-behaved animal is a domesticated animal. It's very specifically defined as dogs, cats, and farm animals. You can't say you have a more tame monkey. It's not the monkey's fault.
The monkey is a stripper.
It's been riding the pole.
It's a stripping monkey. How's that not domesticated?
But it is not tame.
You can't make that argument. How the domesticated animal is not by the specific animal by animal basis, but rather just a large group of farm animals, of cows, basically horses, and then dogs and cats.
Are they going to put down? Are they going to put down poor Gia?
I don't know about that. That's the only thing
I have a question. So, if you were say you're on the defense side, because monkeys live in not technically, factually monkeys, when not held in captivity by humans, live in trees. Is there a legal argument that Gia the monkey falls under bird law because of that?
I'm sorry, that's also a really funny time, but I'm just laughing. Please give a shout out to Whitman, Bobby, of what he just said.
The monkey has probably been spanked. He's not wrong.
Holy shit.
And what makes every little monkey comment, if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see Bobby has changed a picture of a monkey where it's this poor little monkey's eyes just staring into us.
I do love the sort of legal premise that, and obviously we don't know the extent of the injuries, and I sort of said this in our group text and then before the podcast earlier. I don't find it funny as, not to demean it, I don't find it as funny because a child was hurt, which I do feel really bad about. But I love the legal premise that had it been a pit bull that had literally eaten this child, it would be okay, you took reasonable precautions.
There's a spider monkey
that's not technically a dog. that just sort of latched onto the arm, that it's like a whole nother level. Like, oh my God, why'd you have a monkey? Like, this is crazy.
It's an
No,
emotional
there's
support.
There's nuances when it comes to dogs and stuff, whether they have like an aggressive behavior or not. That's like a whole other side to get into. But like the law cannot encourage people to get wild animals and like kind of keep them in their backyard. And if somebody hops in, it's not like it's your fault for buying a wild animal and just like kind of putting it there for people to like see, not like necessarily like. You can't just own wild animals. Like, you have to, like, if you're gonna do something stupid like that, you have to be willing to take the consequences of it, that it can actually be a wild animal. And so the monkey is at fault here.
The monkey was
the monkey's at fault. There you go.
It was scared.
I do think it's an interesting just sort of consideration, because of this is the America that we live in, obviously. I'm presuming that because he was a UT coordinator, I understand the real estate market in Austin's kind of expensive, but I'm presuming he was making decent money. So I'm going to presume that this was probably a fairly high-end neighborhood as well to some extent. So I would expect this to be pretty heavily litigated for sure.
Yeah. And they have 3 people making money in the family. Obviously, there's a lot of money. They have a football coach, a stripper, and then a stripping monkey. So I'm sure there's plenty of money to be had there. But yeah, I think that was just a hilarious story just because of learning about. I think that what makes me laugh the most is they didn't hire Mike Stoops because he was too controversial and there's too much going around it. So they hired the guy who married a person and left his wife for a stripper with a monkey.
Well, we forgot to drop Pole Assassin's official statement on the matter on Twitter. This is it, verbatim. How can she viciously bite someone if they don't stick their hand in there where it don't belong? This is her home and her home only. It's already clear as day on the gate. Don't touch. Nobody's allowed back here without my permission.
Wait. Is she arguing legally? I don't want this to turn into a legal podcast. Is she arguing like castle doctrine, self-defense? Like,
the monkey stood its ground. I thought this was Texas. What about stand my ground laws?
Is the monkey gonna go on the stand and hold up a sign that said, "I feared for my life, so I like pulled my shotgun out and bit the child"? Like,
genetically, monkeys are quite close to us. They're a lot closer than dogs and cats and cows, Blake.
Wait.
Is there a stand your ground defense for the monkey here? Because presumably, if the monkey's in a cage, right? And Texas is not like you have to like retreat state like Oklahoma. Like the monkey is cornered at that point. So there is maybe a fair argument that the monkey was within its rights to use a deadly force to protect itself there. And it's
deadly force.
What? You're not helping
tiny little jaws.
I would not want to be the lawyer arguing deadly force against a child that put its fingers
in favor of a pole dancing monkey.
Hey, let's not bring in
okay,
the monkey's
but
personal life into
objection.
please.
The monkey's career has nothing
relevant.
to do with this, and you're
Yes,
trying
not
to
relevant.
unfairly influence the jury
I'm
by
not-
condemning the monkey for its career.
You're right. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to demean the sex working monkey.
What is it? Sex working?
Yeah,
What is going?
Bonnie's taking
Let's
it to a
move
different
on.
level.
Let's get
Pole dancing does that not count? I don't know. Anyways,
we're moving on. From
we have fully juiced that lemon completely. So let's move on. College football playoff rankings just dropped today. Obviously, the biggest, more notable thing, OU at 8. Personally, I'm not super pissed because this is just kind of a thing for ratings and everything. But Jameson, your thoughts on OU at 8?
Yeah, it doesn't. We'll get into it a lot, but I kind of most logical people are thinking about this like you are, and it doesn't really matter. Should we be 8? No, but they're taking our resume of this season right now without our 3 biggest games of the season versus number 11, number 12, and then a should be ranked Iowa State team probably by the time we play them. And that's going to boost our resume a lot. We do not have really much at all on our resume, only pretty much negative points except for 0 in the loss column. We have not played anyone good that we can kind of hang our hat on. And every other team above us has played at least someone good and has a good win. And the committee showed that they like good wins more than bad losses whenever they put Oregon so high.
Yeah, for sure. Ty, your thoughts on the position at 8?
So I think 8, and I think there's one game that really makes OU an 8, especially considering the sort of college football playoffs, the board members' statements on OU. And that game is very specifically Kansas, because I think had we performed well against Kansas, there is a really fair argument from an outsider's perspective, because these aren't people that are watching. I know they're supposed to, but they're not people that are following OU day in and day out and tracking the sort of happenings, even when it's not game day like we are. So they're watching OU and they're seeing OU struggling. The Texas game, we swap our quarterbacks and seemingly solve the problem, but then we go and struggle against Kansas. And then, we perform well against Texas Tech, but I think that Kansas game and us struggling really hampered us. I think had we blown Kansas out, I sincerely believe that we would be in the top 4, because I think the argument the committee would have been, okay, OU, abysmal all year. We had high expectations for them. They swapped their quarterback. Problem solved. So I think there is a fair sort of assessment there. I know we're going to discuss it more, but we do have a very back-end stacked schedule, and so do some other teams. And OU's the presumed winner of our next 3 games. I don't want to jinx anything, but some of the teams ahead of us, Michigan State specifically, I could see them easily dropping 2 more games. And Purdue, who knows with Purdue this season? Sneaky Purdue. But I think
Sneaky Purdue. I mean,
think
you're not wrong.
I think Michigan State is the underdog in at least one more game.
Michigan State's only favored by 3 against Purdue this weekend.
Okay, yeah. So I'm presuming there'll be the presumed winner against Purdue, the presumed winner against Penn State, maybe, but they're not going to be, the presumed winner against Ohio State. So they could very easily, I think, 2 games dropping for them is reasonable. Oregon, who knows? They play. As you guys know, since about week 3, I've been a lifelong Oregon fan. But that Stanford win is just abysmal. Cincy, I think they've really. I think that the CFP is going to give them no respect. But the initial
CFP is ridiculous.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's totally ridiculous. Blake, your first reaction. I know your first reaction to OU being 8 was just joy, for sure. But your thoughts on the whole.
What happened to protect the shield, Blake?
What happened? Yeah, what happened to protect the shield?
Y'all aren't a part of the shield anymore. But okay, look, I was happy that OU was low, but really, what it still kind of angers me, which I feel like I'm gonna go more to bat for OU than any of y'all right now for how reasonable y'all are sounding. But OU being at 8, and I know struggled against Kansas, and I know has struggled multiple times this year, makes absolutely no sense when you have an Oregon team who has lost to Stanford, who has struggled against UCLA, has struggled against Fresno at home. They're in the top 4. Ohio State, whose best win is Penn State, who Penn State is Sean Clifford, 3 losses. They are not good. I know they were ranked last week, but they struggled hard against them. They beat up on a whole bunch of bad teams, and they've lost to Oregon already. So I'm those 2 teams already, I'm how do you put those in front of OU? Then we go down the line. I can understand maybe a Cincinnati with a Notre Dame win being probably the better of the wins, but next is Michigan. Michigan, kind of same boat. It's they played one good team. They lost to that one good team. And the rest, they were doing some struggles against the Rutgers and Nebraska, people within there. So it's I know OU struggled against probably the worst team in the Power 5 in Kansas. And, I understand that's bad. But at some point, it's all the teams in front of them have struggled against bad competition. But they've lost some. And OU has done quite the opposite and won all those. So it's I don't get how the eye test, to me, even the eye test doesn't, like the teams in front of them don't even pass the eye test. So I'm like, I don't get the criteria of why OU is so low. Like I understand OU at a 4, a 5, a 6. Like I think OU should be in front of Alabama, but if you want to do like the weird like stiffy that the college football playoff committee has for Bama, why they need to put them higher, I understand. But the fact that Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan in front of them, it makes absolutely no sense to me.
Alabama at 2 was very confusing to me because it's not like look, in other seasons you're just like, oh, Alabama's just really damn good and they just slipped up one week. They haven't been like remarkably impressive to me. It's not like if you basically look at what Georgia did and then, you know, put that Texas A&M loss in there and then put that theoretical Georgia at 2, I would get that because it's like, you know, hey, that team dominated its opponents and slipped up for a dumb game. This Alabama team is just kind of dinking around. They've played Mercer and, you know, Miami.
That Tennessee game
different.
last week, they weren't like astounding versus. Did you
No.
watch the Tennessee game? Like, I understand, Bobby. Like, you know, like they're a very good team, but this is not the Alabama of old. And
Exactly.
I kind of want. I'm sorry to cut you off into this, but I feel like a lot of this, and I'll say it in a little bit after I let you get back to your point, Bobby. Is they're just setting up these polls not to actually work to where this is what they actually should be ranked. This is my easiest way to explain myself later down the line of what's probably going to happen and how the dominoes are going to fall.
It's really dumb, and you know what gets me is. You have some of these, if you look down the line in the later parts of the 25, you have these really weird, questionable top 25 moves, like Mississippi State coming in at 17.
Ridiculous.
Do you know how many votes Mississippi State got? They did not get. They got 79 votes in the top 25. Minnesota got 51 as well.
Here's the thing. I think you guys have found the secret sauce, right? You found the conspiracy. You solved the Da Vinci Code here. Okay, but you're not looking like it's like the Puppet Master meme, right? You guys have found one level, but you haven't noticed that there's like another level of the Puppet Master meme. So you guys have noticed that like down in the 20 whatevers, there's like teams that shouldn't be there to boost like Bama's schedule and stuff. And you guys haven't noticed that there's another tier to the Puppet Master meme. And that's like putting Michigan State in the top 4 to boost Ohio State's schedule. Like the initial CFP, right? They're trying to distract you, the elites, the global elites, the media. They're trying to distract you with these teams down in the 20s. And you're not paying attention to the teams up in the top 10.
But Michigan State deserves to be in the top 4.
I agree.
Yeah, but that's my thing. It's
They
like
absolutely
they're
do.
Get
deserving.
blown out by Ohio State.
Well, let's see
can't
it.
We
You can't just assess that.
Minnesota is one of the wins that is boosting Ohio State's schedule right now, and Minnesota lost to Bowling Green, which is one of the worst MAC teams. Like, how is that? Like, that should be if OU struggling to Kansas gets them to 8. How is a outright loss to one of the worst group of 5 teams get you in with 3 losses into the top 25?
Well, so here's the thing, right? And this is, and I'll cut myself off after this till we move on. But OU is sort of a proven commodity, right? Like OU was a presumed playoff team at the start of the season, and we've been at the top of college football more or less for the past 20 years. So. And I know this is sort of a Gooner take. I made this in the group text as well. But it's like with OU, you have a team that you know they're going to perform at least through their conference and stuff. So I understand some apprehension for a team that is sort of a center. I understand Michigan State has been amazing this year. They've beat all expectations and performed. And I understand that OU has a bad playoff record. But in terms of being nationally relevant, you can really make the argument for Bama, with Nick Saban especially, for Georgia, for Ohio State, for Oklahoma, like these big brands. And it's not just a brand money argument, right? Like, you know their coaching staffs, you know what they can do, you know the players, you know what they can do. And it's really difficult to make this argument, and this sort of applies to Cincy too, for these teams that have a one-off year where they're really good. I would probably take Michigan State outright against OU if they were to play this weekend, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you're looking at it, you know, excluding all the money, excluding everything else, like I said with the OU thing, these these people, because technically they're supposed to recuse themselves if they're relevant to the team that's being picked. They're not that big of college football fan. Like they're not following every single game and everything else. So the brands and the sort of recognition does matter to an extent, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. So I think that's a fair argument to make. You know, even I personally, I'm a big downer on Michigan State. I hope they lose their next 3 games.
Why do you hope they lose?
Because I'm a big college football, like only the blue blood should be there sort of thing. Like it's kind of anti-Baylor. I would be perfectly happy if the playoff was just Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, OU every year.
Michigan State has won Rose Bowls, and like they're not even
because
they're not even that far off.
Auto bid for the Rose Bowl. What do you? Of course,
they've been to a college football playoff, got killed by Alabama.
That's
but
like
still.
saying OU has won in the Cotton Bowl. Like, yeah, because we automatically play there. But I'm separating that. You know, I'm trying to be impartial here. Like I said, Michigan State right now for sure deserves to be there, but you know, I can see where the confusion is.
Yeah, I gotcha.
My kind of final parting thoughts, like if we want to come out with a positive and kind of talking about Michigan State, I like the inclusion of Michigan State so high because I felt like for the longest time, the problem with polls is we had this idea coming up into the season who the top 25 teams are. So if you're not one of those top 25 teams, it's really hard to move up. Whereas if you're already at the top, you're not moving down that much. So a Michigan State team that was supposed to be bottom of their division being up so high, I like that they're kind of throwing out all the preconceived notions about them, are willing to put them that high because really if you're looking at it in a season's body of work and looking at nothing else, they should be one of the top 4 teams. So I like that inclusion. I love it.
For sure. Jameson?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to hit on something that Ty said, and I'm glad somebody else said it, because I feel like we give the committee all of this credit that they spend all this time making the decision. But
who gives them credit?
Yeah. No, not like saying like they did a good job. No. I'm not saying not people saying doing a good job. People give them credit as in the fact that like they think that they're doing some brilliant job of setting things up and all of this. And here's my thing with it. I look at this committee and I just eyeball stereotyping. How often do you think this guy wakes up at 11 o'clock and watches college football until 11 o'clock that night? How often is that guy going to the pumpkin patch or going to Trader Joe's probably on that Saturday to go grocery shopping and doesn't watch as many of the college football games that he does? And I guarantee you there's so many in there. And I feel like they just shoot from the hip. And there's probably some very stronger voice, more logical people. And that, Ty loves shooting from the hip. And they probably just ride the narrative. So I'm sure that the narrative in this room was, head-to-heads is a big deal, and we're going to ride with that. And it would look just really lazy and set up to where it's like, okay, OU is at 8, but they have a clear journey. But I don't want to put Cincy higher than 6, even though I think they should be number 4, because if they put them at number 4 and then you leave them out of the playoffs at the end of the year if they win out, that is going to catch way too much flack. And I think that's just horrible because they're already trying to manipulate the rankings at the end. If you give Michigan State the number 3 and you give Cincinnati the number 6, I understand they're in different conferences, but just if you take away conference for prestige, what do you see? Very similar games where Michigan State is toyed around with the many teams this season. And yes, and they have one big win, but guess what? Cincinnati has a huge win too at Notre Dame. And I understand that Michigan was a rivalry game. That's big. But if you're going to put Michigan State at 3, a team that only has one really big convincing win this year and then a lot of other really close games where they could have screwed around and lost one, you can't give Cincinnati down there at number 6 compared to Michigan State. I think that's just absolutely just miserable and horrible for this team. You can put Cincinnati at 4 and leave them out at the end if other teams outperform them. They're just trying to hedge their bets, and I don't like it one bit.
It's completely stupid. The Oregon ahead of them, it's baffling to me. It's an insult. And it's ridiculous because they've just thrown out the balance, all things completely with all things considered, and it's infuriating for sure. So
real quick, I do appreciate the committee this year, their willingness to not just follow convention. I think At least in the initial one.
What?
No,
That
hear me
too.
They
out.
have Alabama number 2, Ty.
Like but it's so okay. Yes, but I think that's not necessarily that unconventional. But it's not like they could have stacked Georgia, Oklahoma, like just stack the Power 5 undefeated teams, And I do think it, at least when we get later, like closer to the actual, because only one CFP rankings matter, really. Like it's all just tweets. It's all just
I know it does.
whatever.
People
before that,
say that, but they use their past rankings to justify whenever you beat teams that either you've already beaten and they come out with playoffs, like the playoff rankings after. Like they use it for everybody's like, it doesn't matter. It does, because that's how they define top 25 wins, and so that's why it matters.
It's still really dumb. It's very dumb.
I to be completely honest with you, the more I think about the committee, I just hate it more and more as a decision making, because I just don't know if I trust these people. I don't know. I understand they have college football past, but how much are they paying attention to the college football present, and how much are they trying to cover their own ass as a committee to not get scrutinized versus actually making the right decision? A computer in the BCS, I don't think BCS is the correct decision, but at least a computer had an algorithm to figure things out. Leaving it into the hands of a bunch of people that rotate every single season, where they just come in one season. It's not like they're seasoned veterans where they do this every year.
And they're ADs. They're ADs.
Yes,
they
rotate them every year.
Literally, their conference, having Power 5 conferences in the college football playoff benefit their universities that they're voting on. It's more
stupid.
revenue comes to conferences that make it. That's just a plain fact.
And let's be honest, I don't trust these people anyways. One year they had Jeff Long in charge, the same guy who was like, you know what, it's a great idea to hire Les Miles. Let's not look into any weird things he did.
Would you guys feel better about media instead
No.
doing this?
I think just
a little bit.
It's literally
If
BCS.
there's one thing you should know, it's don't trust the media. If there's two things you should know, it's don't trust the random people that they put on the CFP committee. We had Condoleezza Rice for a couple years.
That was weird.
We should have learned not to trust Condoleezza Rice in 2003.
Hey, she was
no
rumored
politics.
She was rumored for the
There's a whole
Cleveland Browns
continent
head
of
coaching
world
position,
screwed
so
over because
she
of
knows
her
something
decision.
about football.
Oh no!
Mike, have you ever been rumored for the Cleveland Browns head coaching position? Because Condoleezza Rice was.
Guys, this is. Oh
That
god!
was just
But
crazy.
in all honesty, I curiously want to know, because I understand the BCS. We'll end it on this, if that's okay with you. The BCS, had its flaws because people do not like robots taking over things. We see that, we don't like that. Here's, as Americans, we want American hands doing our job. But like who else would be a better choice other than ADs? Because I just don't like it.
I like the BCS 4.
But you have to add a human component to it. You have to maybe use the BCS.
You don't.
You had the AP poll mixed with the computer poll, and weirdly enough, the coaches poll, which is even worse than the committee or the media.
But it was fine. The only problems people had with the BCS was when the third position got left out. If you use that for the college football playoff, it negates any of the arguments that really people had about.
People didn't like
honestly,
two. The issue was with the two teams. That was the only issue with the BCS.
Yes,
The
and so they
BCS
decided to blow up the whole system.
The BCS overvalued being undefeated too much, because the BCS would put 2017 UCF, who would have got embarrassed in the playoffs, or it would put all these teams that don't play nobody, Paul, and
they were winning those games though.
Yes,
I remember when OU was beat by Boise State, TCU beat Wisconsin.
Bama Cincy's schedule, Bama would be undefeated. If you gave Oregon Cincy's schedule, Oregon would be undefeated. But
under the BCS, literally the only teams that were losing in the BCS era that were from the G5 was UConn, which everybody kind of thought was a fluke.
I don't.
But Boise State beat y'all. TCU beat Wisconsin. They weren't making it to the national championship. They were winning their bowl games, which I think G5 teams liked. I think G5 teams love going to the Rose Bowl. I think G5 teams like going to the Fiesta Bowl. All those things, and that this new system kind of strips that from them by only allowing one of those teams to go, when in years under the BCS we saw maybe two teams could easily have been there, and we saw it with TCU and Boise State.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's interesting, and I don't know if the BCS would have done more of the same. If you looked at that, for example, 2017, the simulated BCS, UCF would have finished ninth in that anyways. So,
Yeah.
but again, the issue was with two the whole time, and we could go another hour talking about the merits of the BCS versus the playoff. But we have to wrap this up. We've been chatting for a while. Blake, thanks for popping on to talk to us about Monkey Law and the playoffs. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man. Always good to be on.
Jameson, Ty, thanks for coming on as well. Final thoughts.
Nothing, honestly. It's a good week to get everyone rested, and I'm curious to see next week's poll, and we'll talk about that too.
Yeah, absolutely, Ty.
I'm
Yep.
good.
All
I'm
right.
ready for picks.
Green Man.
Yep. All right,
I thought we
folks.
had picks 30 minutes ago. So.
Yeah, we're behind. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. Until next time, Boomer Sooner.